Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing Hogwarts Professor Quirinus Quirrell, his appointment as Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor, and whether or not Dumbledore knew that Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort all along. Quirinus Quirrell was an English half-blood wizard born sometime in the 1960s. When he was of age, he began attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, at which point he was sorted into Ravenclaw House. Quirrell was a highly unusual and delicate, but talented student, and was teased profusely at school, making the anxious Quirrell even more anxious. His feelings of inadequacy led to him taking a particular interest in the dark arts, a highly complicated and dangerous field of magic that could perhaps garner Quirrell the attention and respect that he always longed for. For the duration of his studies, he showed a particular affinity for the dark arts, and he ended up graduating from Hogwarts with impressive grades across the board. It wasn't very long after he himself had graduated that he was able to secure a job as Muggle Studies Professor at Hogwarts. It's not actually known how long Quirrell was in that particular position for, but during his time working as a professor at the school, he had a reputation for being extremely neurotic. This likely originally stemmed from his childhood bullying, and it's unfortunate that it followed him into adulthood, as it had a profound effect on the actions that he would take as a grown man. In the year 1990, Quirrell took a year-long sabbatical. He told his peers that the sabbatical was an opportunity for him to gain first-hand experience in the field, where, in reality, his objective was to find Lord Voldemort, exceedingly curious about what had happened to the Dark Lord who tyrannized the wizarding world for years on end. It was a trip that would change Quirrell and destroy what was left of a man haunted by his youth. Quirrell always wanted to be noticed and acknowledged. He wanted to earn people's respect, and he felt that if he was the one to track down Lord Voldemort, then he could finally earn the attention that he longed for. And find Voldemort he did. However, things didn't go exactly according to plan. Voldemort recounts his first meeting with Quirrell. A wizard, young, foolish, and gullible, wandered across my path in the forest I had made my home. Oh, he seemed the very chance I'd been dreaming of, for he was a teacher at Dumbledore's school. He was easy to bend to my will. He brought me back to this country, and after a while, I took possession of his body to supervise him closely as he carried out my orders. And when Quirrell returned to Hogwarts School after traveling, the other professors seemed to notice that he wasn't quite the same. Hagrid recounts Quirrell's nature after returning home from his travels. Oh yeah, poor bloke, brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with the hag, never been the same since. When Quirrell began teaching again at Hogwarts, he didn't resume his previous role as Muggle Studies Professor. Instead, he began his new role as Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor. Quirrell being assigned to this role was a questionable decision, particularly as the far more suited Professor Snape would have snapped it up in a second. It was Quirrell's first year in the role, and it was subject to controversy stemming from Quirrell's apparent incompetency and meek demeanor. While teaching, his lack of confidence was apparent, even to the student body. So why on earth did Dumbledore appoint Quirrell as Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor? Isn't Dumbledore supposed to be the wise old, all-knowing wizard that never makes a mistake? How could he have made such a glaringly obvious error in judgment? Defense Against the Dark Arts isn't all about theory. It also requires immense strength of character, something which Quirrell was seriously lacking in. What's the deal? J.K. Rowling once stated that Quirrell's special ability was that he was learned in the theory of defensive magic, but less adept in the practice. What this tells me is that Quirrell wasn't incompetent or unwise. He was just not a good practitioner of the magic that he taught. His focus was theory. While being able to actually practice what you preach can be valuable, I don't necessarily think that it's essential, and I feel that Quirrell's knowledge in the subject of dark arts, backed by his tenacious attitude toward learning, would have been more than enough to convince Dumbledore of his suitability for the role. Here's the other thing. Dumbledore probably knew that Quirrell was Voldemort all along. I say this because, first of all, Dumbledore always knew that Voldemort would return one day. Being the highly perceptive man that he is, I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have noticed a drastic change in the way that Quirrell acted and behaved after his travels. Dumbledore also knew that the Defense Against the Dark Arts position was cursed, which meant that, at some point or another, something would happen to Quirrell. Dumbledore is also a legilimens, which means that he has the ability to read people's minds, but I don't think that he uncovered Quirrell's possession that way. I actually think the opposite. In ordinary circumstances, I suspect that Dumbledore would be able to easily read and invade the mind of a weaker wizard like Quirrell. However, I expect that while he was possessed by Voldemort, Quirrell's mind would have been uninvadable, the result of Lord Voldemort's proficiency in occlumency. No longer being able to navigate the mind of Quirrell would have been a major red flag, and I'm certain that Dumbledore knew that dark magic was at play. By the end of the Philosopher's Stone, Quirrell is quite different indeed, to the point at which his stutter entirely disappears. It was clear that something was up, and Dumbledore was the first to spot it. He knew that Quirrell had travelled to Albania, the last rumoured location of Voldemort, so he put two and two together, but he didn't have enough evidence to pin him. Voldemort possessing Quirrell actually worked in Dumbledore's favour, however, as Dumbledore, who knew that Voldemort was eager to get his physical form back, lured him in with the Philosopher's Stone. The stone was one of the only ways that Voldemort would be able to return to his former glory, and Dumbledore took advantage of this. It was the perfect bait. There was also very little associated risk with discovering Voldemort in this fashion, as he was A, in a weakened form, and B, neither Voldemort nor Quirrell would have been able to retrieve the stone on their own. It is expressed by Dumbledore that in order to retrieve the stone, you have to see yourself in the mirror, and want it, but not to use it. Dumbledore also had Harry, the boy who was completely invulnerable to Voldemort. He knew all along that there was very little to lose, and potentially very much to gain, by allowing Quirrell to remain in the castle, as it could result in the capturing of a dangerous dark wizard still at large. By placing the stone in Hogwarts, Dumbledore knew that Voldemort wouldn't be able to resist a chance at obtaining it. It was the perfect plan. The only real risk associated with Dumbledore's plan was the, at least in Dumbledore's eyes, highly unlikely scenario in which Voldemort and Quirrell somehow use Harry to get the stone for them. In an effort to make sure that Harry isn't able to obtain the stone himself, he shows Harry the Mirror of Erised on purpose earlier on in the school year. When Dumbledore stumbles upon Harry gazing into the mirror, Harry explains that he sees his parents. This only tells Dumbledore that his plan is safe and sound, as this would mean that he is incapable of retrieving the stone, thus causing less of a risk. Dumbledore of course also baited Harry to the dungeons, knowing that, with his mother's loving sacrifice, he stood a very good chance at defeating the Dark Lord. However, as we know, things didn't go exactly according to his plan. And that's it for this video. What do you guys think? Did Dumbledore know that Quirrell was possessed all along? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.